Hello team, today's challenge is Winter Games Day 4 ski jumping, where we're given a series of points depending on things like distance and style and the direction of the wind and something called a K point value, a bonus, right? And based on that, we need to compare the total of that. So we'll have to sum it up. We compare the total of that with other competitors. And then based on that, we deliver which medal we got, or if we didn't get a medal at all. Okay, participation awards for the win. Being in the Olympics is cool even if you don't win. So there it is. I'm going on record as saying it. But this is what we're doing today. Okay, so over here, I have already done some work. Okay, I've moved those competitors in. They're not ordered, which is kind of weird to me. It's also weird that we only get the numbers. Like, who is this? Who got this score, right? I'm assuming that in professional work, we'd probably have a lot more data to work with. But for this, we're only given the points. And of course, the medals, which I set up as a map, because that way I don't have to set this to 0, right? It just makes my life easier later on, okay? So first things being first, we need to sum up the total, which means that we need to do something here, and we are going to use a lot of helper functions, okay? So we're going to sum some numbers, right? That's a pretty universal function. We're going to return just like this. That's going to be numbers, not that nums, but this nums. And we're going to reduce. And if you've been watching my videos, you've seen this one before, okay? We have the accumulator, we have the current. Right over here, we go accumulator plus current. We don't need an initial value because it peels off the first value from the array, which is exactly what we want, saving us a step, right? Down here, we can use that. So const totals, right, is going to be sum of what? We could create an array out of these things, right? So we could go and copy this, paste it all down. That would do it. But this feels a little bit noisy to me, okay? So I actually prefer to create another variable, right? It makes sense. Let's call this points, set it equal to an array, and then we can put that right here. Excellent. Okay. Our next step is to use these points and compare them against all of these competitors. Okay. So for that, again, we're going to create a new function. Okay. And this function is going to be called getRanking. Okay. Just like this, we're going to pass in 2 pieces of information. So it's going to be the current competitor, the current competitor's points. Maybe we should call it current points. That might be good, but for today, current is good enough, okay? And of course, the other scores, okay? To save us some time, I'm gonna set this to a default value, okay? So that was, if we scroll way up, it was called past competitors, right here, perfect, okay? From here, we can do stuff, right? We can absolutely do stuff, and we return straight away. Okay, we're going to go based on other scores, okay? And the first thing we're going to do is sort. Could we have made this its own function? Absolutely, right? We could break everything apart today, but for what we're trying to do, we're just going to do this. And because we want it in descending order, we go B minus A. Okay, if we want it in ascending order, we would want A minus B. Okay, it's that's just kind of how it works. So I'll leave that at that for a little bit, but there are good articles on how that works. So go look that up. And for now, we return what? Well, we return the index, right? Find index of the other, okay? And we are going to compare current and make sure that it is greater than or equal to other, okay? That's going to give us a thing. Because we sorted it, it's going to find the first one where it is greater than. Okay, so less than, greater than, that's going to be the third one, right? And we do that. Now, in order to use our map, we need something that isn't 0-based. So we're going to go +1 here, okay? We can use that. So getRanking, putting it down here, const ranking equals getRanking. We're going to set totals and what? Well, we have a default argument. We don't need anything else, okay? But This keeps it flexible, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's why I'm doing this. It also creates functional purity, right? Because anything outside of the function, including this, we'll talk about this in a second, anything outside of the function is a side effect. It's harder to test against, and we want to make these functions as testable as possible, okay? So we have the ranking. Now we need to figure out if we got a medal. Let's create another function, okay? So right here we have function get medal, just like this. And for this, we are going to pass in, what is it? Ranking, okay? I was about to say points. I called it ranking. So I'm going to stay consistent there. Now, again, I actually want this to be inside, right? It's likely that all this would come from an API somewhere or a database, but the medals, not so much, right? So we can copy them, comment them out, bring them down, paste them in, and do a little bit of cleanup, okay? From here, we return. What do we return? Well, we return, okay, medals.get ranking, because that's going to be 1, 2, 3, or something else. And if it is something else, it returns undefined, which is great because right here we can use the double question mark, okay, which says that if this is undefined, if it doesn't exist, then return no medal, right? Hopefully that makes sense. We generated this thing, we pass in a ranking, and we either get that ranking or we get no medal. Down here, we wrap it all up. So right here, we go get medal, just like this, and we pass in ranking, okay? And that does it. So that was a few steps. Let's go back and check really fast. We started with our data. Again, this would come from an API somewhere, so I'm not going to do stuff with that, okay? But this here, I didn't want to leave this sitting outside because global variables, not safe, okay? They can be changed by anything, and we want to be really safe about that. So I moved that down in the function, but we started with our data, and then we created a sum function. I've used this before, shouldn't be any surprise, but it takes the numbers and sums them, right? I wish there was an actual sum function inside of JavaScript. There will be later on something called sum precise, but for now, we have to do our own. So we created that, and then way down here, we used it, right? We created an array, and we summed it up. Could we have just passed these in? Yes. Could we have done something like arguments, okay? Arguments is all of these things. Absolutely. The reason that I didn't was because arguments doesn't just take these 4, it takes anything you pass in, which means that if I pass in a 5th value or a 6th value or a 27th value, right, all those would be captured and passed into my sum, which is cheating, right? It is. So controlling it by making sure that we're only using the things that are passed in and then summing those specific things. From there, we got the ranking. For the ranking, we passed in, again, we're passing in all the data we need for this function. So right here, those other scores, in this case, we used a default argument. That's safe, that's okay. And if we really wanted to, we could pass in, we could remove this default argument, pass it in down below, and it would still work the same, okay? We had to sort it because it's not, right? Sorted it in descending order, and then found an index, which we incremented by 1 to get our ranking, right? Use that down here, brilliant. And then the final bit was getting the medal based on that ranking, right? We have a map. It's either 1, 2, or 3. If it's not those, it is no medal. Lots and lots of stuff, and it works, okay? Again, breaking it out like this, these 3 helper functions means that on the one hand, we can test. So I can test sum by itself. I can test get ranking by itself. I can test get medal by itself, okay? Maybe not if I forget to build out past competitors, right? Got to be careful there. But I can test this. And I can test each one of these individually to make sure that they are rock solid. The other thing is, if you're really thinking about this was ski jump medal. But all of these 3 things could be used for anything else. like figure skating or bobsledding or anything. Okay. Anything where we have some sort of points that we need to tally up. We can get a ranking based on that, passing in a different competitor list, and then getting the medal based on that. All universal functions, because it's the Olympics. We probably aren't tallying just one sport, right? But using that all down here so that our core function is nice and clean. That's it, right? That's the whole thing. Did you find another way? Did you find this interesting, right? Share all that. Share whether you liked it, whether you hated it, all that good stuff. Put it in the comments. I love reading those, even the nasty ones. They're always kind of funny, but definitely share. Okay, I love reading what you write, so do that. And yeah, today this has been, what are we calling it? Winter Games Day 4, ski jumping, right? Ski jumping. And I will see you tomorrow.